The college guide is already out. The NFL guide is coming soon. You do a diligent work on both of those. It's great work. And I always say for a resource for bettors, if you're being serious in this space, you got to get the betting guides now. So the college football betting guide is already out. You primarily worked on a couple of conferences, and one I want to focus on today is the ACC, because it feels like a couple of different streams of thought are going into play here. One, this is Clemson revenge tour. Mm-hmm. And by the way, their season was not a disaster last year.
Yeah, they still won 10 games, and it's like, man, it almost felt like they were like 5-8 or something.
Right, it felt like this is some huge drop-off, and obviously, Dabo, as the standard now, is way much higher than it used to be. So it felt like a fall-off, even though they won double-digit games. Now, they are the favorites to win the ACC at minus $1.40, the prohibitive favorite. The next betting favorite there would be Miami, which surprises me. So let me start there before we get to the school I know that you like, and I do too, and that's Don't Turn Your Back on the Wolfpack at 8-1 at NC State. But Miami's the one I want to start here. Are they really back? Because we've been waiting for the U to come back. Do you think this is really the time now? Another coaching change, and yet does it feel better now with Mario Cristobal at the helm?
I think back is a relative term. I don't think because we just so happen on one of our monitors here, I think they're showing one of the old 30 for 30s on the U. So now that I'm looking and seeing Jimmy Johnson next to a national championship trophy, it's like they're not that back down there in Coral Gables yet. But look, they're going with a guy that won 2 national championships as a player there, and Mario Cristobal as part of that offensive line, won one with Jimmy Johnson and then won one with Dennis Erickson. So they're hiring one of their own to try to see if he can get him back. And look, they gave him a 10-year, $80 million contract. So he's going to have his time. And look, I think Mario Cristobal, one thing we know about this guy is that he can recruit. He was one of the best recruiters in the country when he was on Saban's staff at Alabama. I think he's more where he needs to be in terms of recruiting the type of player that he needs to try to recruit. He tried to kind of do that and be like the SEC school at Oregon, which you can't really do. You have to really concentrate on California, Texas, and the Pacific Northwest. Miami, you can kind of recruit a little bit more nationally. You obviously have the state of Florida, and right there in your own city.
You got to win the state of Florida, though, to truly be back.
Exactly. But you're still getting kids from, the Eastern Seaboard and, from New York and New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. But largely it's going to be mostly Florida kids. But Miami, I did not bet them to win the ACC. I did bet them to win the Coastal Division because I think the Coastal Division is very wide open. And just looking at Miami to kind of break down their team at first, they might have ended up the season a little bit better last year. I know they were kind of had their eggs with De'Aaron King, the Houston transfer. He gets hurt. But then all of a sudden they discovered a guy by the name of Tyler Van Dyke. And maybe he's the first great quarterback in a long time down there at Miami. 2,931 yards, 25-6 TD to interception ratio. He was getting the hang of Rhett Lashley's offense. Rhett Lashley, though, the offensive coordinator, now moves to SMU as the head coach. They ran like a little bit of a modified air raid, but they're bringing in Josh Gaddis, who won the Broyles Award last year as the offensive coordinator up there at Michigan. So I don't know how much tinkering Josh Gaddis is going to do with the offense. Also a new defensive coordinator. You have Kevin Steele, longtime guy in the SEC. He's going to clean up some things, I think, with Miami, because when you watch that team, they were starting, I think, 5 freshmen on defense at the end of the year. So you saw a lot of undisciplined play. You saw a lot of missed tackles. You saw a lot of terrible angles,
missed assignments,
dropping interceptions that are right in your hands. So he's going to clean up the details. Charlie Strong, by the way, also on that staff as an assistant defensive coordinator, who is a pretty good recruiter in his own right, knows the state of Florida very well. So it's all going to, Miami's going to go as far probably as Tyler Van Dyke is going to take them. And I think this guy is going to be a first-round draft pick come next April. I think a very deep quarterback draft. Jalen Knighton was suspended for the first 4 games last season. He is their running back. They got a pretty deep running back unit there at Miami. They got 3 starters back on the offensive line. I think the offense, it might take a couple games, but I think that they're going to be fine. So I like Miami in that Coastal just simply because I think that there's a couple teams in that Coastal that are going to be down. I think Pittsburgh's going to take a little bit of a step back because they have a new offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, who was the guy that got Kenny Pickett, kind of helped him to become a first-round draft pick. They had one of the better offenses in the country. They were really explosive. But now they lose Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff Award receiver. He now goes to USC with Lincoln Riley. So they do have a new coordinator there. It's going to be Frank Cignetti Jr., who was the Pitt coordinator in 2009. He is more of a run-first guy. Now, maybe he makes the adjustment, and says, okay, I've got Keaton Slovis now here at quarterback, so we're going to throw the football a little bit more. But it's going to be hard to duplicate 41.4 points a game and almost 500 yards of offense.
I'm with you on that. It just feels like it might be a step back for Pitt, a step up from Miami. But I think the team that you like, if I'm reading between the tea leaves here, to really maybe surprise would be don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. NC State, Dave Doran and what he's got down there. We always talk about continuity. They might have, outside of Clemson, the most continuity going into this season. Didn't get to play in that bowl game last year with the COVID issues. But how high are you on this Wolfpack team?
Well, I mean, I think that they could be very good. Now, they got to avoid the pitfall, and they're getting bet to their win total, and I would still lean over 8.5. But they've got to avoid the pitfall that their rival, North Carolina, fell into. Remember, North Carolina had all the hype last year in the ACC. It's like, okay, they're going to be the one that steps up and challenges Clemson. And and Mac Brown, really kind of hyped them up, too. Mac Brown being the salesman said, okay, I think we can be really good. What do? They go to Blacksburg, a very mediocre Virginia Tech team, and they lose in week 1, and then all of a sudden the Sam Howell Heisman campaign went
a disastrous opening game.
And when you saw them in that bowl game against South Carolina, they got absolutely punked in that Duke's Mayo Bowl. So can Dave Doran kind of avoid the pitfalls, at least a little bit, of Mac Brown? This team was 9-3 last year, best season in 9 years. The 3-point loss at Wake Forest, I think, really kept them out of that ACC title game against Pittsburgh. Devin Leary is the quarterback. Devin Leary, very consistent. He broke the record of Phillip Rivers for touchdown passes last year. If you look, he only has 7 interceptions on 550 passes the last 2 seasons. So consistency, 2 of the top 3 receivers are back. Now they got to replace both their top running backs left for the NFL and went undrafted. So they got to find a way, okay, who's going to step up for that running game. The defense, I think, should be very good. They've got a lot of super seniors coming back. They only gave up, I believe, less than 20 a game, had 15 interceptions, second in the ACC. So they were 31st or better in every defensive category in all of FBS and all of basically Division I college football. So they have a lot back on defense. The schedule is manageable, even though East Carolina, it's kind of a tricky opener for NC State down there. That's an improved team that Mike Houston has with a 4-year starter at quarterback, but then you get Charleston Southern, Texas Tech, UConn at home. You could be 4-0 going to Clemson on October 1st, and you just look at the schedule. Florida State, I think, is going to be a little bit improved. It's not quite where they want to be down there in Tallahassee, but I think Mike Norvell, he's got the program better than I think really where he found it. So Florida State could be a little surprised. Syracuse, I think they're still too down on talent. Virginia Tech may get better as the year goes along, but that's a new coach, Brent Pry. Yep. Now they're at Virginia Tech, and now they have a new quarterback, the kid from Marshall that transferred in. Wake Forest, still going to be very potent offensively, but can they be good enough defensively? And that's why I think Wake might take a small step back because they got to replace a lot there on that defensive union. Brad Lambert comes in, the DC from Purdue. And then BC, Jurkovec does come back healthy, but they've got some replacing to do. Louisville could be potentially dangerous. Malik Cunningham, a 4-year starter at quarterback. Scott Satterfield, new president down there at Louisville, new AD. He's on a little bit, not the hot seat, but at least a warm seat in Louisville. So they've disappointed the last couple of years. And then, of course, North Carolina. I think North Carolina is a sell again this year because I kind of feel like Mac Brown is like a CEO coach. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Bobby Bowden the last few years of Florida State. And he brought in his old assistant, by the way, Gene Chizik. He brought in Chizik, and I think Chizik eventually may take over down there in Chapel Hill.
Well, 20-1 for the Tar Heels to win the ACC this year. And very quickly, Clemson, the rightful favorite. But are you surprised that you got to lay the $1.40? Everybody else, you're getting pretty good plus money
I'm not necessarily surprised. They still have the most talent in the conference, even though the recruiting has slipped down there in Death Valley. But now they're like ranked 6 through 10 instead of 1 through 5 in national recruiting class. So that's slippage. But it's going to be on DJ Uiagalelei. He's got to be better. 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last year was a real disappointment. He's got Cade Klubnik, the 5 starter, breathing down his neck from Austin Westlake down there in Texas. So Could we get a Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence situation at quarterback this year? I don't know. I know Clemson's going to be excellent defensively. That defensive line might be the best Dabo's ever had down there.
I just wish you did your homework on the conference. When we come back, let's do one of the best exercises I think we do in the network. Bet now or bet later. Come on back. It is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.